Ah, a new day. The birds are chirping, the flowers are blooming, and another internet cartoon is getting insanely popular overnight. We all remember the last time that happened, right? I know what you all are thinking, but this thing that I watched, this internet cartoon, was actually very nice. I liked it, and in this video, I'm going to explain why. So sit back, relax, turn off the pornography, and let's dive deep into this cartoon called Satina. So Satina, created by Ellen DeGeneres' mutated clone, her words, not mine, is a show that follows an archetype. The archetype in question is ordinary man in extraordinary situation. You know the types like One Punch Man, Hey Arnold, Doug. And the thing about this show is that it lets you know basically within the first minute and a half of the cartoon, like by that time you'll know basically what it is that you're dealing with, but the way that it does it, the way that it sort of carries you into realizing that this is the theme is what actually makes it somewhat captivating. Let me show you what I'm sorry, I'm eating an Uncrustable. Within the first couple of seconds, boom, it's already there. I can tell that we're dealing with somebody who is down on his luck. His name probably isn't inspiring. He probably doesn't like his job and probably doesn't like where he's arrived in life for the most part. And these traits are sort of driven home harder by the way that the scene actually sets itself up in the beginning. Like, you notice how we pan from being a sort of splendid, very average, almost utopian style, like American suburb, to like this fucking, you know, shitty apartment complex, and where like literally no hope can thrive or something like that. It actually sort of reminds me of which actually might play into the sort of maybe satanic elements of the cartoon, is I believe the sort of archway before you're actually led into purgatory. On the top of it, it says, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." Like, I kind of got that kind of a vibe, which I thought was very interesting. We even get a little spiritual guide that leads us into the themes which are surrounding our character in the form of the butterfly, which is promptly eaten at the end, so you know well and truly that, yeah, you're kind of fucked. I really do like that. I really do think that that was purposeful. And if it was, then really, like, props to the creators. You're gonna hear me saying that a lot during this review. These opening moments of especially cartoons are important because, for one thing, the attention span of the typical, like, you know, consumer is short, but during that short sort of window you need to capture them, you have to actually kind of say a lot with very little. I hope you can understand what I mean. The main point is that I was captivated by this opening, so it does its job, and it actually did its job very well. Like, I can guess what's going on fairly accurately, and that sort of that lack of that unknown factor, that sort of anxiety that you get when you start watching something, it helps you gauge where you are in the cartoon without sort of losing yourself. Because have you ever like watched a piece of media that you kind of lose yourself in, and then you have to sort of rewatch it, but like it's not a sort of enjoyable sort of losing yourself in? It's not like some sort of Clockwork Orange. It's more like just a bunch of like gobbledygook. You know what I mean? To sort of sum that up. I know I'm dwelling on this, but seriously, if you're any kind of content creator, whether you make comics or whatever, like you write, the opening moments in the things that you create are so very important. Like, I cannot stress it enough. Speaking of stress, it's time to learn why our little friend here's life is so very extraordinary, in what is arguably like one of the better introductory sequences I've seen in cartoons in like a while. Like, this was really good.
Huh? Whoa! What the? Ah! Whoa! Hey! Whoa! Get them away!
Ladies and gentlemen, demon titties. Let's just take a minute to both appreciate and dissect this whole scene right here. Dave isn't wondering what's happening here. By the way, we learned that his name is Dave. He's definitely not enthused that it's happening, but he's not left like completely absent-minded as to why or what it is that's happening to him. And at the same time, he's not apathetic to it. He's not like, oh, yeah, it's just another Thursday or whatever. Like, no, you gotta remember, Dave is ordinary. He's not here to amaze us. He's just here to be Dave. What this tells us is that Dave knows his life isn't ordinary. And that's compelling, because how is he going to cope with his extraordinary life? What is he going to do next after this sort of demonic incursion that's going off in his room? Well, I mean, I know how I would react to that. Dave just outwardly confirms our suspicion by saying hello to the demon that appears in his room, because he knows her, and I could pretty much tell almost from the get-go. And when I first saw this, I mean, I was compelled from the start. Now, I was really interested. Now let's talk about Lucia. Notice how Dave is the one to basically let us know that her name is Lucia, because remember, the show is about Dave. Despite what it's called, the show's about Dave. Because remember, the Dave is the ordinary guy. He's the one that we're able to relate to. You get the picture? This intro sequence of her character basically tells us all we need to know on a fundamental level about her relationship with Dave, with ordinary old Dave. Lucia is characterized as being this eldritch, powerful being. But if you notice, like quite literally in the way that she's introduced, and the way that she responds to Dave saying hello, she is brought down to his level. She's brought down to earth, I should say. I'm not going to really talk much about this in this video, but the scenography, the way that the music sort of combines with the art direction in this, it is very, very well done. It's professional grade for something that you might just stumble across on YouTube. Like props again to the creators, because this is very, very well put together. My most favorite parts of this cartoon are in these like first couple of minutes in the opening. And I'm gonna explain more as we go along, obviously. One of the things you need to ask yourself a lot when you sort of review any piece of media is you gotta ask yourself, like why? Like, why didn't Lucia stay in that, like, dark and, like, heavily foreboding figure, like that crazy sort of, like, reality-bending visage of fear and power that she was exuding onto Dave? Like, why didn't she just pick him up and, like, fucking beat him to death and vor him or some shit? The reason is, for one thing, that's not very interesting. It's cool, I guess, and probably kind of hard to animate. And also, remember that the show is about Dave. Like, the purpose of any shift in theme should be to contrast with the actual archetype itself. Like, it should be to, how should I say, make it understandable why this theme is the way that it is. Like, any shift in the tone should serve the overall theme of whatever piece that's being worked on, or whatever piece is being presented, I should say. You can't just go on tangents in, like, whatever thing that you're making, like, whether it be a cartoon or whatever. It has to tie back to what it's actually all about. And in this case, it's about Dave and how his life is ordinary, but he's got some slightly extraordinary circumstances that, you know, we're gonna share with you. I'm dearly sorry, friends. I know you want to get on with the rest of the cartoon, but this is so important. So important. Why does the theme need to return to its roots, like surrounding ordinary Dave? Because for one, like I said, it helps bring it all together. It helps keep the story consistent and fairly reasonably easy to follow without going on too many tangents. And for another, Dave is ordinary, just like most of us watching. It helps remind us that Dave is relatable, but also keeps us captivated in how he's going to react to this extraordinary circumstance in his life. Let me try to relate this to One Punch Man, because I did mention that before. In One Punch Man, Saitama is an ordinary fellow with fairly ordinary desires that is haunted by an extraordinary ability that he has. And no matter where the story may take us, in the end, we always see it come together to what that ability represents in his life. It represents pain, it represents apathy, It represents a loss of concern for, the world around him. And no matter where the plot may go, we are constantly reminded of this, that Saitama, you are just too strong. And this idea of being stuck in this situation that's seemingly out of your control is relatable and extremely compelling. And now that we're thoroughly invested in our little old chummel pal old Dave, it's time to meet the real star of the show. Because unfortunately, our good old buddy Dave must have forgot to craft his monster condom for his magnum dong before going into the nether, and now we've got Satina.
Hi, Daddy.
Once again, props to the creator for this brilliant art direction and introductory scene, because once again, we have everything here in a couple of seconds. It hasn't even been a full minute, and I am fully dedicated to this character. Talk about this one particular scene where Dave is trying to understand how time functions, and Satina just rolls off the bed. Like, again, we know so much now from just so little, and I'm all here for Satina's shenanigans, man. And that's good, because that's so obviously where her character is being taken. Like, you should want to root for Satina, despite how weird and, like, crazy she acts, and how she just rolls around and just bonks her head on stuff. Like, you're supposed to want to root for this character, and I can really tell, because, I am. So it's obviously working. We are meant to love Satina just as much as Dave does, because remember, Dave is ordinary and so are we. So we are Dave. To bring this all home, Satina serves as a great bridge between the eldritch nature of Lucia and Dave's innocence. Just by the way that she talks, moves, interacts with the world, we're looking at someone with unknown power, I should say. Kinda reminds me of Waffle from Cat Scratch. Waffle was strange. He was a little off the walls, I should say, but the thing is, you were meant to love Waffle. You were meant to love his shenanigans, because he had a lot of appeal despite how strange he acted. The way that the other cats essentially treated him like they were his, like, baby brother, or rather, their child or something like that. It really brought a lot of, appeal to his character, just to reuse the word, that wouldn't have been there otherwise. She is someone to both fear and protect. So yeah, like, props again to the creators, the people who, like, really did sort of pour their heart and soul into this to make this. Is it a masterpiece? I really enjoyed it, that's all I'll say. I'm gonna kind of breeze through the rest of this, because now that the intro is done, like, whatever happens next, almost anything can happen next and I'll still be invested, because the beginning pretty much captured me, like, 100%. But anyway, next up is a reminder that Dave is ordinary with extraordinary circumstances a couple more times, pretty much. And, like, the anxieties that he has, like, trying to manage his life with these overlying circumstances. Not going into much specifics, I would just suggest watching it and you'll see what I mean. Like, it just basically happens over and over again. We learn how much he doesn't like his job, and essentially what his job means to him, represented in his boss and the way that he treats him. But yeah, not much to see here. It's the thing that makes this is the fact that Satina is literally just existing throughout all of this, and again, I'm all here for it, because again, her introduction into this cartoon was stellar, and I just want her to be happy. For God's sakes. Dave, just make her happy. But then we get to, I think this is actually the greatest part of the show. Like, never mind the intro. I think this part, despite how flawed, because there are a bit of flaws in it, how it's presented, it's so good and it's so refreshing, and I'll explain.
What are all these little buildings? Do little people live in them?
Not quite. They're called servers. This particular architecture is called the client-server model, and a single overall computation is distributed across multiple processes or devices. The servers can provide various functionalities, often called services, such as sharing data or resources.
Dave here separates himself from the usual from the usual subjects of this archetype by showing us that he's not stupid. Like, he's kind of bumbling, and he's obviously got a lot of anxiety issues, but he isn't some Homer Simpson clone. Like, there's a soul behind this guy. There's a reason he works in server tech. It's because he actually is a server tech and he knows what he's doing. He's not stupid. Like, we shouldn't be looking at someone who's so stupid that he shouldn't even be alive right now. Like, it's a tried archetype, it's a tried trope that really isn't funny anymore. Dave has a passion, and he's really trying to bridge the gap between his ordinary-ass life and his daughter's, extraordinary origins by essentially going into what it is that he does and, how passionate he is about it with her. And man, it was refreshing. It was really lovely to see, and it really brought a lot of warmth to my heart when I did see it. But he's someone you can even relate to your own father. Like, I remember when my father would explain to me how things like, fishing works and like the nature of the tide and whatnot, because we used to fish a lot when I was a child. And obviously with my child attention span, I reacted the same way as Satina by going places where I really wasn't supposed to go and essentially testing his patience. It's also a very charitable representation of how fathers who aren't quite ready to be fathers would react in the situation. And I can see a lot of fathers like that having a heart-to-heart with this cartoon in a really big way. And again, this is what makes this archetype, when done correctly, so wholesome, I should say, most of the time. Like, for example, let's say Arnold, because I also had mentioned Hey Arnold. Arnold is a perfect representation of this archetype because Arnold is someone who is, I'd say just like Dave, trying to make this thing called life with this weird set of circumstances that you have work. For example, that episode about the Pigeon Man, how Arnold goes to him and tries to console him about how strange his life is, and even, after his whole, his whole sanctuary for the pigeons gets destroyed, he tries to tell him, we can fix this, maybe they'll come back. Obviously, Arnold isn't quite the same as Dave in that regard, but what is Dave's goal in doing this? What is Dave's goal in, taking his daughter out to have fun, quote-unquote, on Father's Day? What is the goal of having all those stickers trying to remind himself about the day that's coming up, just for the, the creators to have him forget about it anyway? Because remember, Dave is ordinary guy, just like you, and Dave has some things that he can't quite control. The mistakes that he may have made that are, quote-unquote, biting him in the ass, I should say. And probably so have you at some point in your life. And just like all of us in this thing called life, Dave is trying to make it work. And he's trying to be a good person for the people who are important in his life. Just like you and me. Alright, let me go play some Mordhau real quick, just to feel like a man again. Alright, bitch. Time for you to meet your fucking maker, bitch. Ooh. No. Fuck you. Ooh, bitch. Bitch, call you, bitch. 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 Ooh, nah, you tired, bitch. Come here. Bitch. Bitch. Alright. This is for Sigmar and the Empire. Woo! Damn, you think about switching to the Warhammer, you good, boy? Come here. I'll fucking knock your block off. Ooh! Alright, there we go. What essentially happens next can be summed up as an okay-ish executed bait and swap. Essentially, Satina's destructive behavior has a silver lining, and not only gets Dave out of a jam, but actually improves his standing in the company that he works for. Like I said, we're breezing through. Again, the intro was the important part. The rest of this, again, it's reminding us that Dave's ordinary. He's an ordinary guy. He's ordinary man. But the thing that sort of redeems this is afterwards we learn that Satina was listening the whole time to Dave's spiel about server tech and, what servers are, which, based on how it was presented, seems a little uncanny, but it gives Dave and her something to bond over, so I'm all here for it. Dave essentially asks her how she was able to subvert the audience's expectations, and Satina just barely scrapes by without getting the old Deus Ex Machina label, because I suppose it makes sense with her character and the theme surrounding it. But who cares, because she says one day she wants to be just like her daddy when she grows up. And it's extremely adorable, and I love it, and so, yeah. it's redeemable. Also, we get to hear Zach Hadel scream, so that automatically bumps this up to a 10 out of 10. And then that's essentially it. Like, the cartoon's over. And we are left wondering, when will we get more? No, in all seriousness, it was really good. It was cute. It was almost hope punkish, despite the nature of some of the themes in it. But the ending left me content, but it also left me wanting more, which is very important, I should say, because you never want any of your pieces, like your art pieces, no matter where they are, except like, you know, unless you're guaranteed, you know, having more, like, unless you're guaranteed that they will be more, like say you're in like a big sort of production studio and you have like 2 extra seasons added on top of the one that you're already working on. But if not, then whatever you're working on, especially if it's the pilot, then it should leave us off on a fairly good note, I should say. But also shouldn't leave us like sort of expecting more, I should say. Like, your audience should want more after you finish something. They shouldn't be expecting something afterwards, you know what I mean? Like, you should be able to tie up all the themes in one episode, especially if it's the first one, like I said, and leave it so that if the audience wants more when they ask, it's fairly easy to just pick it up where you left off. You gotta leave your audience feeling full, but not teased at the same time. So I guess to sum up my thoughts, excellent thematic presentation, especially in the beginning, excellent character introductions, an excellent departure from tired motifs like Beater and Homer Simpson, and a bait and switch that was decent enough to be passable, but maybe I'm just a cynic, and a satisfying ending. I'd say it's fairly satisfying. I really did enjoy it. But don't take my word for it. I'll of course leave the link to the video in question in the description of this video, and I'll also leave the link to the creator's Twitter, Hannah Daigle, and you can see for yourself and maybe come up with your own ideas of what you like and maybe even dislike about this cartoon. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully Shadman doesn't get his hands on it, but even if he does, well, that's just life, I guess. Thank you for coming to my video hole. I'm Drewski. Consider checking out my socials. I'll leave them in the description of this video, and have a nice day.